Hi, we are back in Mumbai for another episode of This Is My Architecture. I'm Raghuram from AWS, and today I'm joined by Malaya from Manthan Systems. Hi, Malaya.
Hi, Raghu.
Tell us a little bit about what Manthan Systems is.
So Manthan is a leading cloud analytics provider which provides analytics application across business domains such as retail, CPG, and QSR.
Wonderful. So what are some of the challenges that you see in this business?
So basically today I'm going to talk about RTI, which is real-time inventory. This is one of the crucial challenge from a retailer point of view because you just want to know when my stocks are out and I have to refill it, right? So, but traditionally it so happens in inventory management system where you can't keep a count of the real-time inventory because you are getting data from multiple sources, right? Yeah. You have some orders, some supplier is supplying you order, you are replenishing those order, you have returns happening, yeah. You have promotion running. So somewhere you have to have a process whereby you have to keep polling these events and then taking them into account to understand the real-time inventory. And that is what we are trying to solve as part of this.
Wonderful. I think having access to this kind of a real-time information is going to be very, very useful for businesses, right? So yeah. We've got an architecture here. So can you walk us through in terms of what's going on here?
So we have event bus here. Event bus is a collector of all these events. As I said, there are different systems in retail, right? Because retailer doesn't stock everything. They buy it yeah. from different vendors. So vendors supply those things through supply management system. You have replenishment system. You have merchandise system. You have order system. All those system data basically comes to event bus. And basically from event bus, we have two type of data here because some are pure real time and some are basically batch sort of process, which is more like a trickle feed type of data, which are like sales and other things. So what happens when we gather this data, event bus pushes this data to Kinesis streams.
Yeah, okay. So you're pushing all the data into Kinesis streams. So what kind of a scale are we talking about here?
So you can think in a retail store because when promotions are running, you can have, so far we have seen something like 2.2 million write per minute and 2 million reads per minute.
Wow, that's some real scale, right? So you got to push all those events in real time to sure. something like Kinesis. Yeah. Awesome. So once data lands in Kinesis, so what happens after that? So how do you process that data?
So as you see, everything, we are not having any EC2 as such, right? Because we have totally taken into consideration serverless architecture because everything is processed by Lambda. So as the data comes to this Kinesis stream, there is a Lambda which gets invoked by various file types and it does processing of this data depending on the file types and transaction type, and then it pushes back those data to Dynamo.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you're using Dynamodb to store your persistent data. So how did you go about choosing Dynamodb?
So as you understand, because you don't have a variable load, because this load comes depending on the nature of promotion and other things which are not controlled by us, right? So depending on those invariability and the load, we tried multiple NoSQLs and we found Dynamodb is the one which can cater to our need from a transaction per second point of view, both from read and write.
Okay, that's wonderful. So this pipeline kind of, talks about the real-time use yeah. cases, right? I also see you have another pipeline on this side of the architecture. So what's going on here?
So as I said, there are certain type of file like adjustment, receiving, stock. All those files actually give you more real-time data because somebody comes, returns you something, that data come immediately. Yeah. But there are certain data which retailer can give within a few minutes of time, which are more like batch. So basically like 3 to 5 minutes interval. So all those data comes to S3 bucket, and from there we have a Lambda which basically wakes up, processes this data, and basically puts it back after necessary processing and transformation back to S3 for further consumption through our ETL process.
Okay, wonderful. So this does like the first level of pre-processing once data lands here, and then your ETL kind of wakes up and starts processing the data. So what happens after that once your ETL starts processing the data?
So basically ETL does the processing and push the data back for historical analysis. So ETL basically picks this data, push this data back to Redshift for further analysis.
Okay, so you're storing those data into Redshift for any of your historical analysis.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay, so you got real-time here, you got batch here, data is flowing through on both sides of the architecture. So how do then people kind of consume this data?
So basically, as we had Dynamo, from Dynamo actually what happens is that we do batch transformation or small aggregation, you can say. So basically this comes here and basically we store them back for further consumption. So basically this Dynamo, from Dynamo we are consuming Dynamo stream, which is again a Lambda process which does help us to aggregate and pass this data back to MySQL and also recaches them into Redis for further and fast consumption. It works like a smart cache, you can think.
Okay, wonderful.
And then we have customers, retailers or analysts within the retail firm who want to understand what is going on, right? Because we have not only this app, this app is also can be consumed through mobile because retailers like store manager, merchandise manager, they immediately get to know, okay, I'm going running out of certain stock. I should talk to my warehouse guys, fill that up. So this is that app where basically they consume this sort of analytics, and for that we are using API gateway, which is again a serverless component. And API gateway basically, when the request comes for a API, it invokes Lambda, and again Lambda checks whether the cache layer is filled, then serve the data from the cache, or else consumes the data back from MySQL RDS, fills it up, the cache, gives back the data as a JSON, it goes back to the analytical user.
Okay, wonderful. And then I'm assuming that you also leverage Redshift for any historical
analysis. So basically it so happens that there are certain reports or KPIs, we say key performance indicators, very common in retail terminology or analytics terminology, so to say, where basically people try to analyze analysts try to analyze both real-time as well as historical data. So in such cases, our retail application is smart, which basically fetches this data back and fetches some of these real-time data, merge them together, give the report to the end analyst actually.
Wonderful. So essentially you have broken down this into a real-time layer and a batch layer and a serving layer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I think this is great. I think there's a lot of learnings from this architecture. Thanks for sharing this, Malay, and thanks for watching This Is My Architecture.